Hey, Posse, it's Joy. Please check me out this week on the Six Figure Chick podcast with my girls, Cherie and Nyoka.
Hey, buckle up, queens. It's time for the Six Figure Chick podcast, the one and only podcast made to teach Black women like you how to make a six-figure income. Whether you are a high-performing woman, professional, new business owner, author, speaker, or even a mom, you're sure to pick up golden nuggets of actionable advice when you listen to the Six Figure Chick podcast. Each week, we will deliver hard-hitting, no-nonsense, keep it real topics about being a Black woman in America and the
girl, hush your mouth.
we deal with. We're gonna talk about this
And that.
and we're gonna talk about everything else that has held us back. No more, queens. It's time to hear from real people
With real life.
and real talk. So grab your best girlfriend and get ready for this ride. Hi, I'm Cherie Griffith-Dunn.
Hi.
And this is the Six Figure Chick Weekly Podcast to help you win at work, in your business, at home, and succeed at life. The year of the Black woman is shaping out to be one powerful year. We are excited to bring in rich content about Black people, especially Black women who are pioneers and trailblazers in this great country. Today, we will continue our discussion about all women coming together. As the saying goes, each one teach one. We want to thank all of our listeners. We truly appreciate your feedback and your 5-star rating on our podcast. We do ask that you go over and subscribe to YouTube, looking for Six Figure Chick Podcast, to get all of the notifications and be aware of what we're doing. Keep in mind that we do this because we know how important it is to have a voice for all women, especially now. So today you're going to hear from one of my amazing friends. She is responsible for doing this podcast. Yes, that's right. She single-handedly helped us create this amazing podcast. She is a go-getter, a starter, an amazing woman, and I'm so glad to have her on our show today. So Joy Daniels is one of the hardest working women, breaking barriers and taking names. She is the host of Joyce Corner podcast. It airs every Wednesday at 4 p.m. You can check her out on Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and SoundCloud. You don't want to miss her. The unique thing about her podcast is that she infuses music in with her message. So she really keeps you intrigued. So let's hear more about her journey. Please welcome Joy to the show.
Hey,
Thank you for being here.
how are you?
I am wonderful. As you can see, I am one man down. Nyoka had some things to do, but we didn't want to stop this amazing interview with you because we know how busy your time is, and we truly appreciate you spending this time with us and our listeners.
Anytime.
You are just a unique woman. When I first met you, I was so blown away by what it is that you do, because I don't meet many women who do what you do. So will you share with everyone what it is that you actually do?
Well, mostly my biggest thing is this podcast or this show, Joyce Corner, which I've been doing since 2017. I started doing that when I was a student at Sacred Heart University. They have 2 radio stations, or at that time they did. They have the NPR station, that's WSHU, which is all talk all the time. And then they had the student radio station. And I've been a music person ever since I was little. My dad's a retired cop, but on the side, he DJs in Bridgeport, still does. So music was always incorporated in my life from a little girl. So and so I try to incorporate that in the show, or I tried to do that forever. Joyce Corner now is more just talk. I changed my format about a year ago to just talk. Um, and you'll hear me talking about music that I like and stuff like that. And then I do a weekly playlist on Spotify as well, which is under JC underscore Daniels. So if you want to hear some of my favorite songs and some of your favorite songs, and you want to hear the new music that I pick every week or talk about on the show, it's on those playlists.
Wow, that's exciting. So people can actually go and get this playlist
Yep.
for
And
free.
yep, it's for free. They don't have to pay for it, and you could listen to it while you're exercising, while you're on the train. I picture people on the train or on the subway in New York City, underground, kind of listening to Joyce Corner or listening to the podcast, listening to the weekly playlists. It's just,
While we're cooking,
yep,
cleaning the house,
exactly.
anytime we can have really good music. So let's talk about some of the genres that you enjoy, because I find that your mixture is really, sometimes I lose myself in the music because your picks just bring me back. They
Yeah,
bring me
I
way
know.
back.
Well, I'm an 80s baby. I was born at the end of the 70s. So a lot of my stuff is disco. Like I love disco. But then I grew up on freestyle. Like I'm from Bridgeport originally. So when I was a little girl, freestyle was like a big thing. Well, up there. Um and then, as I've gotten older, it's been house music. Like when I lived in the South, it was house music. And now that I'm back and the new decade brought in EDM, I like rock. I'm a big rock person, big Lenny Kravitz, Santana, Dave Matthews Band, Nickelback. Oh God, I love Nickelback. But I'm that person. I love music, and I've been like that ever since I was a child. But that's because of my dad.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, just the fact that you can appreciate music. Because when I think of music, it gives me an opportunity to kind of relax. It's my time to kind of zone out and just really take some time to reflect and not really have to think about things. Right. So I think that's why a lot of people love music, because it puts you in a good mood. It can also put you into a really nice, smooth mood, a
Mhm.
time when you're thinking about different things, reflecting on your past or your future. So for me, music really, moves me, which I enjoy. But I'm not great at putting playlists together. So I'm glad that you have that opportunity to give us one that's already done. So I love that piece.
See, I was afraid just doing talk show because people weren't used to me doing just talk. They were used to the music, or basically the biggest thing was the music on the shows. So then it was like, okay, well, how do I give them a playlist? And then it was like, oh, Spotify. Well, so yeah, and people listen to Spotify.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's on Google. So we have Google Home. And so that's what my kids listen to every single morning as they're getting dressed for school. They'll
Yep.
put a playlist on from Spotify. Absolutely.
Yep. So that was the biggest thing, was to make sure that I still cater to my listeners because that's what they were used to from me.
Right. So talk about, how to work all of this equipment. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Which is not something that's very common for women. I mean, you see a lot of women DJs these days that are coming out, but it's still a very small number of women DJs compared to men DJs,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, how, was it difficult for you to learn how to um, use all of that equipment, put it all together, or did you find it natural because it's something that grew up watching your father do?
Well, when I started doing that show, at when I was at Sacred Heart University, the first show I ever did, I was in the studio by myself. Like nobody was in there to tell me, okay, you go on now, or this is how you work this equipment. I had to learn it myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That says a lot for you, right? So you're very smart. You're into breaking barriers. Nothing holds you back. That is super exciting. So what would you tell someone who maybe doesn't necessarily have that gusto, but they want to start a podcast?
What would I tell someone that wants to start a podcast? Um, well, first you have to know what you want to talk about. See, podcasts are mostly talk. People, you have to know what you want to talk about. You have to have things to talk about. And it could be anything. Like mine is pop culture, music. Some people like to talk about politics. Some people like to talk about Spotify, but you have to have like an idea. You can't just go into it willy-nilly. You know, yeah.
Right. So when I decided last year, in 2020, that I was going to do this podcast, I like had no idea. And so I'm sure there's people out there going, man, I'd love to do a podcast because I have a lot to say, but I just don't know how to get started. I think that for me, the first thing that I did was kind of research a little bit more about the equipment that I needed to use. And I wanted to understand what goes into the back office of really putting the podcast together, because we could talk all day long, but there's a lot of things that we do in the back office so that we're providing a really nice sound quality product. So can you talk about some of the things that you would recommend someone have to really create a nice sound for their podcast, and perhaps be able to put it together so that they can get it out to people?
You have to have the right microphones. You have to have great microphones. You have to be in a good room. Like sometimes I'll use a studio. Sometimes like I'll be home, and my home it's the kitchen area, like a living room kitchen area, because that's where the sound is best. Yeah,
Oh,
you have to be in
so let's unpack that. So I don't think that people actually realize that where you do your work matters,
yeah, because
because it.
you don't want to be somewhere where you hear cars outside and ambulances going, because that gets into your recordings. Same things with phones ringing. You don't want that. Like you have to be in a place where it's kind of quiet enough so that the sound bounces off well, but also so you don't have distractions. Like when I'm recording, I literally have to turn my phone off. Like I have to turn my messages off because I get a lot of messages and then that can get into the recording. Like there was a point where I was in the studio when I was live and people would send me text messages and you would hear it on the radio.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I had to fix that so you couldn't even hear that. It's just you have to be in a quiet place. You have to know what you want to talk about. You have to have good microphones, and then it just goes from there.
Right. So step one, you guys, if you're looking to start a podcast, you need to have a topic, know what you're going to talk about, right?
Hmm.
And then step two, have I would say find the location, right? Find the good location in your house where you're able to have some quiet, so so the sound is really good quality, and then get a great microphone,
Yep. And
get
also,
some good equipment.
and then most people do it with one other person. Like normally you do it with Nyoka.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's a lot easier, right?
because you can play off of
Because
her.
right, if she's not available, I'm available. If I'm not available, she's available, so the show can still go on. So that's good too.
Yep.
So this is juicy. This is really good stuff. So then what would you say is the next step that people need to have to create a good podcast?
Then you have to be able to have recording equipment. Like you have to be able to have some place that you're recording this, and some place that you're editing this. Some you want to edit. Sometimes you need to edit some things out. Like everything, just because you record something, it doesn't have to all be in there. Like you don't want the noise. You don't necessarily want the breathing. You don't want if you're saying because I have a tendency to say a lot of ums. You don't want all those ums in there. Like you want it to be, you have to have it. Some of it's editing. It's what you're recording, how you're recording, where you're recording, who you're recording with. Some people can do it. So, some people don't have to have somebody. Like I've been doing my show so long without somebody that I've learned how to do it without somebody. But sometimes I like to have the guests because I don't want, I'll go back and listen sometimes to my own stuff and I don't want to just hear my own voice.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really like that point. That is very key. And then when you were talking about, the editing, because that was one of the things that you had to teach me, right?
Hmm.
Because you don't want the silent sound in the beginning. You want to be able to edit that out.
Hmm.
You want to be able to take out noise, right? So you want to do the noise reduction. So some of the editing equipment that you had told me about, one was Audacity,
Hmm.
which was free.
Hmm.
And so once I learned how to use it, you guys, this stuff can be tricky. It's, you got to have a science. There's a step-by-step process you have to do to get it right. So
And you
once I learned how to do that, I could take out some, because sometimes when you have guests, the sound isn't great.
no.
And so you want to take out some of the buzzes and some of those sounds. And Audacity was just a great program to help me do that.
Hmm. And you could, yes, use that. And then after that, you have to figure out where you want to put it. Like where you want people to listen to it. Like, do you want them to hear it on Apple Podcasts? Do you want them to hear it on Spotify? Do and then there are, you can figure that out. Um, and then you have places like Anchor where you can put your podcasts on there and they distribute your podcasts.
Right. And so that was one of the first platforms that we started with, which was Anchor.
Hmm.
And then we went to Podbean.
And then SoundCloud is another one. Mine, when I put it out on Facebook, I put it out on SoundCloud because everybody could hear that. But then, then there's are other places that you like a distributor would put it out there for you. Or you have some companies, like Dear Media is a company, but mostly you have to sign up for that. You have to like a lot of the I don't know what to call them. I don't want to say celebrity podcast people, but a lot of the celebrities use Dear Media, but a lot of them you have to have contracts.
Okay. So is can anyone find where can they find Dear Media so that they
Dear
can use that?
Media, that's probably you have to look. You can look that up online, but that's mostly celebrities. You don't want to send anybody
Okay. Don't go there yet. You're not a celebrity yet. No.
there. Yeah, yeah, the celebrity that's for like real like people, but other people, like people that are just starting out, would use like Anchor or the places we mentioned.
Right.
Because
Podbean.
when you start doing a podcast, you're not professional. You're not, you know what I mean? You're just starting out. Like the first couple of shows I did, I mean, I go back because I go back and listen. I have all of those files from like when I first started the show, and I go back and listen to those. I'm like, I sounded like that. Oh my God. If anybody was listening to that, I feel for them.
Right.
'Cause
I know. Like the first time that we did it, like seriously, I don't think our description was right. We had no idea what to really write. We didn't know what we wanted to write. And then editing was, it took me, you guys, it took me days, like seriously days to figure this
and
out.
and see, that's another thing is when you do a podcast, sometimes you're not going to start off right away. You might want to record a few of them a couple of times before you put it out, put like a final something out there for people to listen to. Because you're not good. Like I was live. Like I would tell people to listen to me. I'm live and I'm just starting out. So whatever people heard of me at that time, like I said, I feel for you. Because I was nowhere near what I've grown.
Right. But we have to start somewhere, right?
And I
So it's good to start no matter where you are and then grow from it, you guys. Like she's saying, listen to her now. You'd be like, no, I could never picture her, not sounding amazing. I mean, like the graphics she uses are phenomenal.
Mhm.
So she did our intro, which
Mm.
was phenomenal. So, and she went step by step, you guys. So the first step is that you have to have an introduction, right? You want to have that really nice introduction that people can listen to that kind of blows them away.
Mhm.
So you need to go find your music.
Mhm.
You gotta
But
find a royalty-free music. So we
but
had to pay, I think we paid like $7 for that song.
Mhm.
And then Nayoka and I recorded the introduction. It took us like 12 times, you guys. 12 times because we're doing this from Zoom, and then she didn't have the right equipment on her end, and so you could hear it. And so there was a huge delay. And so then finally we're like, that's it. And then we sent it to Joy, and Joy did her magic and
Mhm.
came out with what she did. And we were like blown away. We were like, what? This sounds like this? Oh my goodness. I'm like, didn't we have so many errors? Like, so she's saying you can cut a lot of things out.
Mhm.
Now I know how to cut and put things together, but before, yeah, that wasn't happening.
But when you're live, you can't edit anything. Like,
You sure can't.
so I did live radio at WHRT, and then I went and did live radio in New Haven for a year with Joe Ugly in the morning.
Oh, that's a neat name.
Yeah, well, he's nothing. He's not ugly. He's not.
Okay. I
But
was gonna ask, is he ugly?
it was that the way he explains it is it's the ugly truth. He like his show is talk, but it's mostly like pointing things out to people, like stuff with politics, and it's like a true black show,
Okay.
and it's a bunch of guys, and I was for a while there, I was the girl that was in the middle of these guys, and it was funny. It was like because you have the guys that of course have their opinions, and you have this girl that's in the middle of them that comes in with her opinions from a
Oh, I love that.
yeah. So it was just, I did that for a while, and when you're live you cannot edit anything. Like you're just like whatever they hear.
Yeah, that gives me a different perspective as you were saying that. I'm going, when you listen to people on the radio, they're live.
They're not
What
edited.
goes goes.
None of
Yeah,
that is edited. That like whatever you hear, that you're getting exactly what you hear is what you get.
right. Which is interesting because they're so good at it.
And some of them do scripts. Like some people will say, okay, like before you go on the air, they'll be like, okay, Joy, I want you to say this. I want you to talk about this. But most of the time when you're on the air, like live, I hate to tell this story. So there was one night, and when I was at WHRT, nobody was in a station with me because it was a student station. So nobody was there, and there was one night that I got no sleep. Like I got very little sleep. So, and I figure, okay, you're gonna go to sleep, but your show is at 3 o'clock, so you'll get up and you'll go. I got in there and literally was almost asleep on the air.
Oh my goodness.
And in the middle of it, I'm doing this. So I had to get up. There was a fan behind me. I had to get up and turn the fan off. Otherwise, I would have been in the middle of the air like this.
Right? Everyone listening.
Yep. And there was another time I was live. They had just switched equipment because the new semester started. So they had switched equipment on me. And I go in there. The whole time I'm live, you could hear everything that's going on behind me. Literally, like people are talking, like the manager of the station came in and we're having a conversation about what we're doing with the show. People could hear us talking. I went back and listened to it. I'm like, they heard us say, they could hear us talking.
Oh my goodness.
So a lot of when you're live, like you can't cut anything out. Like it's just it was a mess.
Yeah. That's why I'm glad we record
Mhm.
before we air it.
Yeah. But that when you're sometimes I miss doing shows live because that was fun, but at the same time, you also get a little lax when you can edit yourself
Hmm.
because when I decide to go live again, I'm not going to be able to edit myself.
Right. Absolutely. And
So
I
it,
think that was, as we started to get a little more comfortable, it was because I knew I could edit it out. I
yep,
didn't care. But I think that, the changing point for me was investing in a Mac.
yeah.
So investing in a MacBook Pro.
My computer, I had to get a new computer over Christmas because my computer was on its last leg. Like it would like in order for me to use it, I had to like you could most computers you could take the charger out of it and you could still use it. In order for my computer to work, I it had to be hooked up to the charger. If I took the charger out, it went.
Yeah, I have one of those. I think
Yep. So
that's
I
my old PC, my old laptop. Yeah.
over Christmas, I got a new computer and my sound, I mean, I noticed this myself, has been way better because I got a new computer.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so there's a lot of little things that I've experienced doing this. And then
Yeah.
I'm doing a couple of other things like I was telling you about the commercials that I'm going to be um doing with Michelle Blacksmith Tompkins.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That really is incredible. Great opportunity.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I mean, we're putting the finishing touches on it right now, and but that's gonna be fun because my dad's gonna be part of it.
Wonderful.
So we'll get to hear his story about um that. And then a couple of other people that are there's going to be like 4 or 5 different people coming on and I'm going to be chatting with them and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. I love it. I mean, I've done a couple of commercials, which has been a lot of fun. Super exciting, a little stressful, but they're fun.
Yeah.
I think, podcasts are better because it's like that I could hide that behind the scene, that
Mhm.
talk. But no. So I think this is really great. We're really giving people the ins and outs on having a podcast. It's so I think it's so important now for people to really speak their truth and have the opportunity to do it and know that they can do it and create great quality for very little money
Mhm.
and really reach a ton of people to actually do that, which I think is fantastic. So, when you think about, is there anything else that people should think about when they're doing a podcast that maybe we didn't discuss?
Know who your audience is.
Mm,
See, because I started in college radio, my audience was younger than me initially, and then whomever I told to listen to me, which was mostly family and my friends, um, they were listening, but mostly it was a college kid. So I had to cater to the college kids, and I still do because that's how I started off. That's why the music I put on shows is like a lot of it's like stuff I listen to, but it's also a lot of what I know the kids are listening to.
right, which is cool,
Yeah.
which is
So,
really great. But you also, even still, you have a way of mixing your music that you bring the new with the old, you merge in an eclectic sound. So do you think about that ahead of time? Like, do you foresee that you're going to put that mix together, or do you just do that on a whim? Like, it
I try
doesn't just come while you're doing it.
I try to put what I call joy into it. So I try to put like my personality into it. So you might hear like, I don't know, Dua Lipa, who I love, love, love. I love Dua Lipa. That's one of my favorite artists. But then you'll hear like the new people that are out, but then I'll throw in like, I don't know, gotta think about somebody from the past. Let's see, I'll throw in Vogue.
Hmm.
And and it's like, oh wow, I haven't heard this song in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it brings you back. It's like, okay, all right.
Yep. So it's just it's I'm trying to put my I guess I'm trying to put my spin on it, and that's what most people do anyway, but
Right.
yeah, and I try to cater to, like I said, who I know would be listening to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I don't know if we really thought about our audience, other than the fact that we wanted women. We were very keen on ensuring that women of color understood the opportunities that were out there for them, and really fostering an environment of success for them,
Mhm.
because we understand that, being at a disadvantage sometimes means that you just don't have the information. And when you have the information, to me, that puts you now at the advantage where you want to be. But I think that the podcast has now grown to where, we see this unity forming,
Mhm.
where we have women of all races coming together and in a sisterhood that's really saying, I'm here to support you. What can I do to help you? And it is just so beautiful. And we also have a lot of men supporters who
Mhm.
are really encouraging women, and especially women of color, to rise and to do their thing. And it's so nice to see that support, because so often we don't hear about that type of support, right? The community wants us to think that people of color don't support one another, and especially men
Well,
don't support.
that's because they make it seem like we don't support each other. And then, I think that gets in our heads too, that we don't support each other, and that so it comes out in how we treat each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we need to form that mutual respect and also be open to
Mhm.
this unity that's coming aboard, right? To
Mhm.
the unity of people of all color coming to support one another, which I think is fantastic. And so I'm hoping to see more um, podcasts pop up because of this interview, Joy. You are just such a bright light, and you're so intelligent and just highly talented to do what you do, because you bring something that's so unique and different that I don't think that people would ever think to do what you do. And that is to bring that happiness and that joyfulness to people through music and through, your words of wisdom that you deliver to people. So I think it's wonderful to hear you. And I want to truly thank you for being our mentors as we began our podcast, and encouraging us to, give our voice to the world. And that's what it's all about, uplifting one another and supporting each other as we begin on this journey of ours to um, just be, right? And help create this amazing world. So I truly thank you. The Six Figure Chick podcast. Thanks, Joy's Corner.
No problem.
Wait, and so when you were talking, I have to say this, like what came to mind was my most favorite hip hop song. So let's see if I can remember. Hip hop, hippity hippity, hip hip hop, you don't stop or rock it to the bang bang boogie. Say jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie the beat. That is my ultimate rap song.
Oh, you go back to the 80s.
Yes, that's when you were talking. I'm like, that's my jam right there.
Yeah, a lot of my favorite music is from like, I play a lot of 80s in there. I don't know why, well, because I was an 80s kid. So
Yeah,
that was like some of the best times of my life. So, good memories.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again so much for blessing the Six Figure Chick podcast and all of our members with your amazing knowledge on how we can start a podcast for ourselves with basically little money, just some willingness to want to follow some steps. You gave us 6 amazing steps. I'll go over them again for people who forgot, for the people in the back of the room who weren't listening. So your first step is you want to find a location where you can begin to do your recordings. And that, you guys, was an eye opener to me. I mean, I'm in my office, and sometimes I can hear my kids. And when we were taping, I could hear my 8-year old. So, I have 6 kids ranging from 8 to 24.
Mhm.
And so I could hear him. So I had to text the little one of his brothers and go, get him away from my office door. You always, location is key, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then step 2, you said, to take a look at the equipment.
Mhm.
Be prepared to have equipment. And I know when we spoke, you told me what type of microphone to get, and it was one of these nice microphones. And then sometimes I use the round piece that comes with it. But
Mhm.
I know that having this extra cushion helps with the sounds and all that. So that's really good. And that wasn't very expensive. And you want to have it so that it's steady, right? So that it's not shaking. And then step 3 is no, that was step 2. No, step 3. Step 2 is the equipment. So step 3 was recording. So
Mhm.
have the things, know what you're going to use to do the recording, to edit the recording, to get all of those things that we talked about. Audacity. You can use iMovie, which works really well, or you can get expensive equipment like Joy and be amazing using that. I have no idea how to do that. Then we have so step 4 was your introduction. So know what you're going to talk about. You need to have a story. What is your storyline? What are you going to say? Right? So know what we're talking about. And step 6, and then within step 5, you need to not only know what you're going to talk about, but you also want to get your introduction together. Make sure that's banging and really sharp.
Mhm.
And then step 6 is know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Oh, and let's do a step 7 because we didn't talk about frequency.
Mhm.
How often will you air?
Well, that's another thing you have to decide. See, mine was that I did a weekly radio show. So I was on every Wednesday. And then when I stopped doing it there, then I was like, okay, so I want to keep doing this. But I need to do it because people are used to hearing me on Wednesdays. So I need to do it during that same time. Like initially, before I was bogged down with these meetings every Wednesday. My shows would come out like 2:30, so because the shows were at 3 o'clock. So I would put them out just early enough so that people could listen to them when they were used to hearing them. But
Right,
but lately, as of late, they've been coming out a little bit later. But people can still listen to them on demand because it's not live, so they
right.
can go listen to it anytime. But yeah, you gotta
So
know.
that's key,
Mhm,
right? Giving people the flexibility for them to listen whenever they want to listen,
mhm.
but being consistent. If you start something, you must
Mhm.
continue it, right?
There are people that, they'll start doing a podcast and they'll do it for a little while, and then you won't hear anything else from
And I noticed that when we were doing our research was that there were a ton of podcasts out there, but there were none consistent.
them.
Some
Mhm,
they hadn't seen anything for 12 months, 18 months. They hadn't posted anything.
mhm,
And so the interesting thing is when we started, we said we wanted to do it maybe once a month or every 2 weeks. But I
mhm.
got so excited when I started to record the intro that I said weekly. And then when you made it all beautiful and it came back and I was listening going, that says weekly. I go, oh boy, we are stuck on weekly. So we have been doing this weekly, and we're super excited. This is our 15th, basically our 15th week that we have been doing podcasts. We're super excited about that, and we're going to continue to go forward and continue to do it until I don't know when.
Until
Uh,
you're not wanting to do it anymore.
yeah, until it's no longer fun. Right now, it's so fun, and
Yep,
it's basically, as long as you have an internet connection, you're able to record anywhere in the world. It's so
mm,
exciting.
yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you all for listening to the Six Figure Chick podcast. Look out, please go to YouTube and subscribe so that you will be notified of every new podcast that comes out each week, Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Thank you. Bye for now. This has been another episode of the Six Figure Chick podcast. Please be sure to join us next time for some more hard-hitting career and business advice. To stay connected, follow me on Instagram at Cherie Griffith Dunn. And if you would like to be a part of the baddest club around, join High Performing Women Academy, the place where you belong. Go to hpwacademy.com. And as always, if you like what you hear, come back and next time, bring a friend. If you're interested in sponsoring, donating, or even advertising your business with me, please contact me at connect@CherieGriffithDunn.com.